Hi everyone, in this second video of our playlist for the sweater Kal, I would like to talk to you a little bit about the yarn that I've chosen for my second version of the sweater. Most of you are working with hand dyes, and this is usually merino superwash as a base, and you cannot go wrong with this yarn base. And I was actually really enjoying designing this sweater for a hand-dyed merino superwash. It's a very soft and sturdy yarn with a nice flare around the body, so basically this is a standard among the knitters. But the yarn was provided to me from Caroline from Yarn, which is hand dyeing in New Zealand, and I just realized that if I want to work with this yarn on a regular basis, I would always need to wait for the shipments and to do the whole logistic, which is a huge topic about sustainability at the moment. So I myself wanted to check what is, do I have any yarn base that is a little bit nearer to me that I could actually put in my dye pot and see what is going to come out of it. And after some search, I actually did find a German merino wool, which is completely produced in Germany, from the sheep that are actually in Bavaria, in Bayern. And I ordered a kilo of this wool because I wanted to put it in a dye pot and to see what is going to become out of it. And my idea was to knit the second version of the sweater in undyed yarn, but when it arrived, the white base of this wool was not what I expected. It actually looked a little bit yellowish, a little bit off-white, but in a kind of a ugly direction. So it reminded me a lot of a nylon yarn that we used for knitting when we were kids. So I didn't want to have this effect. I actually wanted it to have this lustrous, luxurious sheen that the yarn, the hand dyes and the hand knitted garment basically should have. So then I said, okay, I'm going to dye it. And when I was choosing the color, I knew that I wanted to go into the red nuance tones. So I was like, I want to have a red, dark red, something like brick, something that reminds me of Brandenburg. And then I just put, without lots of pre-thought, I just put lots of oranges, lots of reds, and lots of grays in the pot to a certain concentration to be able to dye this sheep yarn. And this is what I got. So this is the color that I was happy with. It came out of 2 or 3 dyeing trials, so it wasn't the first success. But then I got this nice shade of red, and I said, okay, this is fine, I can live with this, I can wear this, I love it. I could even be okay with putting it in the shop. For those of you who are yarn dyeing, I just wanted to say that if you are dyeing the yarn that is not superwash processed and that is a little bit more like a farm yarn, then you have to count with it that it will soak the color extremely. So I actually had to put double the measure of the color that I would use for merino superwash. Okay, and then I had my yarn and I was happy with the color, and then I said, okay, now I have to do a swatch. So doing a swatch is extremely important because it will definitely define the size of your garment. So I did a swatch, and my idea was, because the wool that I bought from Germany was a little bit harsher than merino that I got from Caroline. So my idea was to actually have a thread that I will carry with me, and to make it a little bit softer, and to have it a certain halo around the sweater, so to make it nice and fluffy. But then I didn't like it. I had a feeling that it's actually killing the color that I created, and that it's going too much in this mild craze that is all around knitting world at the moment. And I was like, okay, maybe I just want to have a straight color, because having a straight color and staying in this elegant world is also a nice moment. So this is what I decided at the end. So I knitted my swatch to the end with without the accompanying thread. And then I went on to measure my gauge, and it turned out that my gauge is 18 stitches on 3.5mm needles, and the pattern is calling for 23 stitches, which you will most probably get 22, 23. This doesn't make any big difference if you're knitting with merino superwash hand dyes of any of the dyers out there. So I was like, oh, so now I have a little bit smaller gauge, so how can I now, so now I have several possibilities. So if I want to stick with my yarn, and I actually really liked how it looked on 3.5mm needles, I have to either go to the smaller needle size to get the higher gauge, or I need to accommodate for the gauge by knitting by knitting smaller size, or I need to somehow recalculate my gauge. And and I decided to do the third thing because I realized that any other intervention is going to take me away from the effect that I want to achieve, which is basically having exactly this gauge also in my sweater. So how did I recalculate for the gauge? This is something that I wanted to share with you now, so bear with me for a second. This is a little bit of math, but it's primary school math, so I'm sure you can do it as well. So basically, if you have a smaller gauge than the one that the pattern is calling for, you have to calculate a certain you have to have a reference how small is your gauge. To get this number, you divide the number of stitches that you have in the pattern with the number of stitches that you get in your gauge. In my case, it's 23 divided by 18, and you get the gauge that is 0.19, let's say 0.2 times smaller. So this is actually 1/5 smaller. So so for every 10 centimeters of the garment, I have to have 1/5 of the stitches less than I would usually have, that the pattern is calling for. So this is how you basically adjust for the gauge, and you just take out this number of stitches. If you have a straight pattern where there is no cables, no lace, then it's quite easy. If you have some kind of a cabled pattern, as in this case, because you have a cabled shoulder line, so I was a little bit afraid that if I so here I know how I will do it. I will just have 1/5 of the stitches less picked up, and this will be the same size as the one that I have in the pattern. But what about the cabled line? The cabled line is a bit can cause some problems, because actually the pattern is calling for 82 stitches to be casted on to have this cabled line pattern that is coming here over the shoulders. So I was afraid if I cast on all 82 stitches that this cable is going to fall just down to my breasts, which is not the effect that I would like to have with this sweater, because I would like to have a cabled line around the shoulders and the neckline. So that's why I decided, because I couldn't tackle the number of stitches, so I'm having basically 4 parts of this pattern. So I'm having small cables on the sides, these are 2 sections, and I'm having 2 big cables, one for the back and one for the front. So I decided to go with a little bit. So here I cannot do a lot because I will change the way that these cables look like, or the visual effect that these cables give me. So to accommodate for the gauge, I decided to take a couple of stitches out of the big cables pattern. And if I have 82 stitches, the 5th would be 16, so I would have to take 4 stitches on each side to accommodate for the gauge if it would be stockinette. But if it would be a stocking stitch. But I was thinking, okay, this is a cable, it will twist around my neck, and it's not a stocking stitch, so it has for itself a little bit tighter gauge, so I'm going to have 3 stitches taken out from each of the sides of the cable, which basically means -3 is makes 6, -3 makes 9, and -3 makes 12, which is basically I have to take out 12 stitches to get the brightness of the cabled pattern, of the cabled shoulder, at about the same width as the one that is calculated in the pattern. So 82 stitches in the pattern minus 12 stitches makes basically 70 stitches, which is the number of stitches I casted on, and I just took some stitches from the big cabled pattern to accommodate for the gauge. And then I measured, and it turned out to fit perfectly with the cable that I already have on my shoulders.